Serena and her. In fact, she's almost is shy, so
Staying
they're
away
really
from her.
strangers, aren't they? I don't think that they know each other that well.
No.
And is this friendship really more for show than anything else? Because my friends know my kids very well.
Yeah.
But this doesn't feel like they interact very often.
It's January 1st, 2026. The new year just started. People celebrating fresh beginnings everywhere. Meanwhile, in Meghan Markle's world, her friendship with tennis legend Serena Williams is reportedly falling apart in the most shocking way possible. Just 2 months ago in November, Meghan and Harry showed up at the Baby to Baby Gala supporting Serena, who received the Giving Tree Award, smiling for cameras like best friends.
Serena and her. In fact, she's almost is shy, so they're really strangers, aren't they? I don't think that they know each other that well.
No.
And is this friendship really more for show than anything else? Because my friends know my kids very well.
Yeah.
But this doesn't feel like they interact very often.
The new year is supposed to be about fresh starts, clean slates, and repaired relationships. But behind the smiles and carefully staged public appearances, not everyone is entering 2026 on solid ground. In Meghan Markle's world, one of her most high-profile and long-celebrated friendships is now surrounded by whispers that refuse to go away. A bond that once looked unbreakable, built over more than a decade with one of the most powerful women in sports, now appears strained, distant, and quietly unraveling. Just weeks ago, Meghan and Prince Harry stood beside tennis legend Serena Williams at a major charity gala, smiling for cameras as if nothing had changed. But according to people watching closely, that moment may have been pure performance. Behind the scenes, rumors suggest something serious happened, something involving trust, boundaries, and a line that may have been crossed in private. No public statements. No dramatic fallout. Just silence, distance, and a friendship that no longer looks the way it used to. And as speculation grows louder online, one question keeps resurfacing. What really caused Meghan Markle and Serena Williams to quietly drift apart as the new year began? For years, this friendship was held up as proof that Meghan Markle had real, lasting connections long before royal titles and global controversy entered the picture. Meghan and Serena Williams didn't just appear together once or twice for the cameras. Their bond was presented as deep, personal, and built on mutual support. They first crossed paths back in 2010 at the Super Bowl, when Meghan was still a little-known actress and Serena was already a dominant force in global sports. They reconnected again in 2014, and from that point on, the friendship seemed to solidify. Publicly, everything about their relationship screamed loyalty. Meghan was regularly spotted in the stands at Serena's matches, from Wimbledon to the US Open, cheering her on like a true insider rather than a casual celebrity acquaintance. When Meghan married Prince Harry in 2018, Serena and her husband Alexis Ohanian were seated among the most important guests, a signal to the world that this wasn't just a surface-level connection. In 2019, when Meghan was pregnant with Archie, it was Serena who organized the lavish New York baby shower, an event that dominated headlines and reinforced the idea that these two women were genuinely close. Even when Meghan became one of the most polarizing figures on the planet, Serena stood by her publicly. After the explosive Oprah interview in 2021, Serena posted messages praising Meghan's compassion and strength, defending her when criticism was at its loudest. At the time, many people pointed to Serena as proof that Meghan wasn't as isolated as the media claimed. This wasn't portrayed as a PR alliance. It looked like a real friendship that had survived fame, distance, and controversy. But as solid as it appeared on the surface, there were signs, subtle at first, that the foundation might not have been as balanced as it seemed. And that imbalance would eventually matter more than anyone realized. When you look closely at this friendship, there's an uncomfortable detail that often gets brushed aside. The power dynamic was never equal. From the very beginning, Serena Williams and Meghan Markle were living in completely different worlds. By the time they met, Serena wasn't just famous, she was already being discussed as one of the greatest athletes in history. She had global influence, generational wealth, and access to elite circles that very few people on the planet ever reach. Meghan, on the other hand, was still fighting for recognition, working on a cable show most people couldn't name, and trying to break into spaces that were firmly closed to outsiders. That difference matters because friendships built on unequal footing often come with unspoken expectations. Serena didn't need anything from Meghan in terms of status, exposure, or connections. She already had all of that and more. For Meghan, though, being close to someone like Serena offered credibility, visibility, and entry into rooms that would have otherwise been impossible to access. Some observers have long speculated that this imbalance quietly shaped the relationship. Even if neither woman ever acknowledged it publicly. In those early years, it didn't seem like a problem. Meghan showed up at matches, sent supportive messages, and appeared genuinely invested. But over time, critics began questioning whether the friendship benefited both sides equally. Uneven relationships can survive as long as boundaries stay intact. Once those boundaries blur, however, things can unravel quickly. And according to rumors that began circulating much later, one moment may have exposed just how fragile that balance really was. This is where the story shifts. And it's important to be clear, what follows is based on rumors, insider chatter, and unverified reports, not confirmed facts. Still, these whispers didn't come out of nowhere, and they all point back to one alleged moment in late 2024. That insiders say changed everything. According to claims that began circulating in entertainment circles in early 2025, tension surfaced during a private celebration connected to one of Serena Williams' major tennis moments. Several reports suggest Meghan was seated close to Serena's husband, Alexis Ohanian, during the gathering, with other high-profile figures nearby. What raised eyebrows, according to these accounts, was Meghan's alleged behavior, described by some as unusually familiar and crossing from friendly into uncomfortable territory. People who claim to know what happened say the situation didn't stay private for long. The most repeated detail in these rumors is that Serena's mother was present and allegedly noticed the interaction. Sources say her reaction was immediate and unmistakable, with a sudden shift in attitude toward Meghan that others in the room reportedly picked up on. That detail, whether accurate or not, is what gave the story traction, because Serena's mother is known for being deeply protective of her daughter and her family. Again, none of this has been confirmed, and neither Meghan nor Serena has ever addressed it publicly. But insiders insist that whatever happened was serious enough to cause discomfort within Serena's inner circle. If those claims are even partially true, it would explain why the dynamic between the two women appeared to change almost overnight. And rather than exploding into public drama, what followed was something far quieter and far more telling. After late 2024, the shift in their relationship wasn't announced or acknowledged, it was simply visible to anyone paying attention. The loud, affectionate moments that once defined Meghan and Serena's bond seemed to disappear. There were no more casual sightings, no candid behind-the-scenes photos, and no spontaneous social media exchanges that suggested real closeness. Instead, every appearance they made together felt formal, brief, and carefully controlled. Throughout 2025, their interactions were limited almost entirely to public-facing events where showing up was expected. When they appeared together at high-profile charity functions, including a major gala near the end of the year, they smiled for the cameras, posed side by side, and then reportedly went their separate ways. People familiar with both camps claim there was little private conversation, just the bare minimum required to. maintain appearances. Even moments that were presented online as warm began to feel different under closer scrutiny. A short visit, a quick Instagram post, or a simple reshare replaced the heartfelt messages and visible affection that once defined their friendship. Observers noted that gestures which used to feel personal now looked transactional, almost like obligations being checked off rather than genuine expressions of closeness. On the surface, nothing had ended. There was no fallout, no unfollowing, no cryptic posts. But the consistency of the distance told its own story. Something had clearly shifted, and whatever it was, both women seemed determined to keep it out of the public spotlight. And that decision to stay silent and composed revealed far more about who held the upper hand than any public confrontation ever could. What stood out most to people watching this unfold wasn't what Serena Williams said, it was what she didn't say. If something uncomfortable or disrespectful really did happen, Serena's response was the exact opposite of what many celebrities choose. There were no public statements, no vague quotes in interviews, no pointed social media posts designed to spark speculation. Instead, she went quiet, and that silence appeared intentional. Those familiar with Serena's personality often describe her as fiercely protective of her family and deeply private when it comes to personal matters. From that perspective, avoiding public confrontation makes sense. Calling out rumors or addressing alleged behavior would only pull her into a media cycle she has nothing to gain from. Her legacy, her marriage, and her reputation were already secure long before any friendship with Meghan Markle entered the picture. By maintaining a polite, public presence while quietly creating distance behind the scenes, Serena seemed to be drawing a firm boundary without inviting chaos. It's a strategy powerful people often use when they feel betrayed. Remove access, protect what matters, and refuse to give the situation oxygen. No drama, no spectacle, just separation. That approach stood in stark contrast to how conflicts around Meghan have played out in the past, at least in the public eye. While Serena chose restraint, the silence itself became the message. And for many observers, that quiet withdrawal hinted that whatever caused the rift wasn't minor or easily dismissed. It was serious enough to end a decade-long friendship without a single word spoken aloud. Looking at the bigger picture, the alleged fallout fits into a pattern that critics and commentators have long pointed out in Meghan Markle's personal relationships, and again, this is framed as speculation and public observation, not fact. Over the years, people have noted that Meghan tends to form intense, high-profile connections that sometimes serve her goals, whether in Hollywood, royal circles, or business ventures. Some observers describe these relationships as transactional, where loyalty is measured by mutual benefit rather than emotional depth. Insiders and biographers have repeatedly suggested that Meghan gives selectively and often expects return in the form of access, status, or influence. Entertainment commentators, Reddit threads, and royal observers have questioned whether her friendships are as authentic as they appear. Many online discussions over 2024 noted that her relationship with Serena, once celebrated as genuine, began to feel performative. The timing of the rumored incident with Alexis Ohanian only reinforced this perception, highlighting how quickly appearances could be maintained while real trust quietly eroded. It's also telling how Meghan's public persona emphasizes authenticity, compassion, and meaningful connections, while reports suggest her private relationships tell a different story. Whether these claims are true or exaggerated, the repeated questioning of her friendships over the years suggests that multiple observers notice the same pattern. Closeness that looks real in public may not reflect the private reality. And in the case of Serena Williams, whatever broke the trust appears to have made that gap impossible to ignore. As 2026 begins, The timing of this alleged fallout adds another layer of intrigue. Meghan Markle is actively building a new public image, launching Netflix projects, promoting her lifestyle brand, and positioning herself as someone who values authenticity, compassion, and genuine relationships. The messaging is consistent. She wants the world to see her as deeply connected, empathetic, and supportive. Yet, according to insiders, the reality behind the scenes may be starkly different. Sources claim that her friendship with Serena Williams, the very person who publicly stood by her during some of the harshest scrutiny, has quietly ended. There are no private calls, no casual hangouts, no meaningful exchanges that once defined their bond. What remains is a carefully maintained public facade, designed to avoid drama and protect appearances. While the actual closeness is gone, this contrast raises difficult questions for observers. How much of the authenticity Meghan promotes is performative? And how long can a public persona of compassion and real connection coexist with a private life where key friendships quietly dissolve? The answer may never be fully known, but the signs are clear for those paying attention. Some relationships, no matter how long-standing or publicly celebrated, cannot survive certain breaches of trust, real or alleged. As the story unfolds quietly behind closed doors, it serves as a reminder that in high-profile lives, what the world sees can be very different from what actually happens. In the end, what we see between Meghan Markle and Serena Williams in 2026 is a study in contrasts. Public smiles and social media posts versus private distance and quiet withdrawal. Nothing has been confirmed, no accusations have been made openly, yet the patterns are visible to anyone watching closely. A decade-long friendship that once seemed unbreakable now exists primarily for appearances, while the real connection that defined it has all but vanished. Whether the alleged incident with Alexis Ohanian actually occurred or not, the fallout highlights a simple truth about relationships in high-profile worlds. Boundaries, trust, and respect matter more than optics. Serena's apparent choice to protect her family and preserve her legacy rather than engaging in public drama shows a different kind of strength, one rooted in discretion and self-respect. Meanwhile, the contrast between public image and private reality raises broader questions about authenticity, intention, and the cost of relationships built on unequal footing. As viewers, all we can do is observe the subtle signs read between the lines and recognize that in lives lived under constant scrutiny, silence often tells the story more clearly than words ever could. And sometimes, the quiet ending of a friendship says far more about the people involved than any public statement ever would.